Hello and welcome to another Demon 212 PC review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at F.E.A.R, which, if you've never played it before and you haven't got any clue about it, it's first encounter of Assault Recon. It's basically a horror FPS. It's one of those that loads of people slated at times whilst also praising it. It was almost like it was dividing the PC community. Some were saying it's amazing, some were saying it's terrible, some were, it's just things like that. I'm personally in the it's amazing crowd, so let's get on with it. At the start you've got single player and multiplayer, of which the multiplayer I'd be amazed if anyone's still playing it, so I'm not really going to bother showing it, but it is your usual options really for deathmatch, team deathmatch, stuff like that. Options, being a PC game, you can pretty much customise absolutely everything, including graphics capabilities and all that. Profile, you just create a profile. Single player, new game or load game. I'm going to go a couple missions in because there's nothing really I can spoil by showing later missions. I won't obviously mention the deep story or anything, but at least in that way I can kind of show off a couple of the better weapons. So here we go then. So the whole point of the story is that you are, as I say, a member of F.E.A.R, and you're sent in because some fucking weird shit has gone so very, very wrong. It's a case of, well, spooky things are happening, things are moving on their own, things are flying around on their own, bodies are falling down, getting ripped apart, and there's a lot of people scared and freaked out, and so you're basically sent in to investigate and find out what the hell's happening. However, it wouldn't be so simple as having a straight story. After all, it's these days when even Hollywood movies and all that always have to be deeper, so as you play through the game you find out exactly what's happened, of which that I won't mention. It is basically standard action FPS though, where you've got a whole heap of weaponry and you have to figure out where to go and what to do next. There's usually multiple paths to get to the room of enemies, and you can either sometimes take the high road or the low road, and you have to base your strategy around that. There's telephones that need answering and emails that need checking and things like that. And, well, other than that though, it's a case of getting a bigger gun and going and shooting everything in sight really. It's done really well. The atmosphere is tense, but I'll be honest, I'm not the type of gamer who gets scared by games. I've only ever been scared by 3 and this isn't one of them. So I can't exactly say it's terrifying or anything like that, but I can at least say that the availability of weapons that you've got machine guns, assault rifles, you've got big plasma cannons, you've got shotguns and things, and as you might have noticed, you can also go into slow motion to fire your weapons. It's basically your unique power, and I'd like to be able to see it's what's on the bottom left corner, but I'm displaying on this monitor for the first time with the new laptop that I've got, and it's cutting things off a little bit, but basically in the bottom left corner there'd be a couple of symbols. There'd be health, there'd be armour, and you'd also at some point be able to check how much slow motion meter you've got, because as you go throughout the game you can collect different intravenous's and things like that, different injection systems that will increase your overall health, or will increase your overall slow-mo ability, and the slow-mo is again just a strategy thing that you use it in certain places to make it easier to shoot the enemies. It doesn't exactly make the game incredibly easy because it recharges so slowly that if you were to play the game entirely in slow motion, the game would probably take you about another 20 hours longer than it would do, because you'd be constantly running and hiding and waiting for your slow-mo to come back really. So it's a case of using it whenever you think it's worthy of using. So if you walk into a room and you think, well, there's only 3 enemies, I'll take them out, probably not a good idea to use them. If you walk into something like that though, where they're all covering, then it's probably a good idea to use it if you've got it. So let's cut into a different level. And to be fair, I've cut into another level and I don't really know what I've got left to say, because I've pretty much mentioned all the basics and the most important parts. I will say that I personally think the combat is done extremely well. I think the whole game's done really well. I like how the slow-mo's worked, I like how the story is, and I just think it's an absolutely excellent game. I especially like the AI and how they really can trick you in places and really screw you over, and all of a sudden you're sitting there thinking, I'm sure there was another one, I just don't know where he could go, and then you get killed and you realise he flanked you and was right behind you all the time. There's boss battles per se. There's an end boss battle with Alma, who's the little red girl, who I can't say any more about her without spoiling anything. But there's also a kind of boss battles with fighting hordes of enemies and fighting big enemies that are covered in really bulky armour, and you've got to use really powerful guns that can penetrate that armour to kill them. You can also lob grenades around, which helps out, of which you can get a couple different types of grenades, and, well, it's just, after that, as I say, a standard FPS. So if you've never played it before, it's currently hella cheap on Steam, on their sale and stuff like that. Or hell, even if, to be fair, you're watching this in January and the sale's gone, it's still probably extremely cheap on Steam. So, well, take a look at it. Oh, and to be fair, there is something I kind of forgot to mention. The game has 21 missions, and they're all pretty lengthy. It's definitely a really long game, and something that if you enjoy, you'll get your teeth into and just take a good few hours to beat it. And considering its age, and it's pretty much, I suppose, really one of the first generation games to come out on the Xbox and that, if you've got the PC version like this is, and you've got the rig to run it, it will really look fantastic, because it still does hold up to a lot of the games that I see coming out on consoles, that if you can run this on full spec. So it's not exactly an ugly looking game either. So there we go then. That's been the review. I hope you found it helpful. I don't score the games because that's based purely on opinion, so instead I'll leave you to make your own mind up. So thanks for watching, and if you've got any questions about the game that I didn't answer in the vid, or that hasn't been answered in the comments, then feel free to ask and I'll help if I can. Also, if you did find it helpful, don't forget to check out my channel, because there's plenty more like this up there, and don't forget to subscribe because there'll be plenty more to come as well. So until next time, this has been Demon212, signing off.